Hi, my name is Robert. Please read the comments in the About section of this video. It has valuable information and updates. My YouTube channel has a disclaimer video that I encourage you to watch. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you found what you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. One of my viewers asked me to do a video explaining what I look for when looking at purchasing a car. And in general, it's not much because I don't pay too much for most of the cars that I get. But let me go ahead and approach this for a general, your normal everyday person point of view. Let me start off by explaining to you why I deal mostly and primarily with these Volvo mid-90 cars. First off, let me say that I initially had extremely good history with a 1987 Volvo 740 GLE. I drove that car for about 17 years and I got over 400,000 miles with the car, and it ran and drove almost like brand new. Very dependable car, and I actually think that was one of the best cars ever built. In my opinion, that car was built to go and last 1,000,000 miles without any major issues. And this car here is the 1990 version of that vehicle in a wagon standpoint. After I gave that vehicle away to a single mom, or should I say sold it at a very, very low price, I had a couple other 200 series cars. Then I had a couple 900 series Volvos that I had very good experience with. And then I found out about these white block Volvos 850s and the 70 series cars between 93 and 2000. Those are considered Volvo's P80 series vehicles. In the early 80s, Volvo almost went bankrupt and almost had to close their company, mainly because they wasn't keeping up with the thrill of owning a vehicle. They had the best vehicles on the road, the 200 series vehicles, but those vehicles just didn't excite people. So Volvo had to do something drastic to start engaging and exciting people, and that's when they started turbocharging their vehicles and came out with the 700 series cars, the 760s and the 740s. Well, the 760s and the 740s saved them from going bankrupt, and Volvo decided that they had to continue that aggressive stride towards meeting the emotional as well as the safety needs of the people. So in the early 90s, Volvo launched their front-wheel drive series vehicles, the 800 series cars, which they came out with the 850s. In other markets, they were called the 854s and the 855s. They won multiple awards with those vehicles, and those vehicles, in my opinion, were built to last 500,000 miles without any major issues. So with those kind of track record strides and drivability, safety features, and the overall comfort and safety and dependability of these vehicles, I purchased one of them, my first being a 1998 red S70 for my daughter, GLT version, which is the first turbo car I've ever purchased. Quickly fell in love with that car, and a month or two later I found out about the R series cars, which were more fun to drive than that, being their racing series vehicles. So I purchased a 1995 yellow Volvo 850 T5R. Drove that car for a few years, really enjoyed it, and then I purchased a wagon that you see in most of my videos. My wagon was purchased long distance, sight unseen, from a gentleman that lived close to the Boston, Massachusetts area that I personally believe was a meth addict. I found the car on Craigslist. That's a whole nother story. I may tell that story one day, but I wasn't looking for much in that vehicle except for a clean VIN number. To me, that means a vehicle that didn't have a bunch of accidents reports on the VIN, and it was not a salvage title. So that car fit that bill, so I went and purchased that vehicle, knowing it had a bad transmission, drove it 1,500 miles home, and I made several stops on the way, enjoying my trip on the way home. It took me 10 days to get home from purchasing that vehicle, and yes, I did drive it with a bad transmission. Overall, minus the plastic in most of these cars, 20-year-old plastic is going to be rough in all European cars and most cars in general. The last thing I look for is the cleanliness of the vehicle. I know most of the material is made good and strong. A filthy, dirty car will clean up, and the black wagon that I drive, my 95 850 T5R, was the dirtiest vehicle that I had ever purchased in my life. The vehicle, I believe, had sat for 8 months, and every week that a car sits without being cleaned, it gets dirtier and dirtier. So that's the last thing I look at when purchasing a car. As you can see, this car looks like the motor hasn't been cleaned in 100,000 miles or more. The interior was very dirty, and I just really didn't care about the cleanliness of it, and my purpose of purchasing the car dictates what I look for as well. If I'm looking for a car that I plan on keeping as a daily driver for myself, I'm looking for a specific vehicle, and there's only a couple things that I'm really concerned with. One, is it drivable? Two, how much is it going to cost me to get that car to a state that's comfortable for me and my purpose of it? So, I may not be looking for much in it, but of course, one thing I don't want to do, I don't want to be replacing a transmission, and I don't want to be replacing a motor as in a whole assembly. So if it's got a decent transmission and the motor's okay, I'll probably buy it depending on the price. For any vehicle that I'm looking for, I want to know what is considered the blue book value of the car. Kelly used to be the standard for that, but in my experience lately has been that the NADA guides is a better source, and it's a source that a lot of insurance companies using when they go to replace a vehicle that may be totaled in an accident. So, in my opinion, if you're looking for a vehicle that you're going to keep for a daily driver, and you want to make sure that you protect your investment, find out the NADA guides blue book value of the car. And what I normally start with is clean retail. So I'll go in NADA guides, punch in the specifics for the vehicle, and see what the clean retail value is for the car. Because if I purchase that car, get it all cleaned up, serviced up, running good, if that car is totaled by someone, and I personally keep full coverage insurance on all of my vehicles, I want to know that I'm going to get something out of that car so that I can replace it without a lot of effort. Once I have the blue book value of the vehicle in clean retail, and generally clean retail is what most used car dealers will sell a vehicle for, that's my benchmark. Then I go to the vehicle and check the vehicle briefly from bumper to bumper, looking for major concerns, major service needs. And I take those needs and back them off of the blue book value. Here's a quick example. Just in general, in my opinion, any car that is not running, you can't start it and drive it, is not worth any more than $500. Especially if that vehicle is 15 years old or older. So if you're looking at a 15-year-old vehicle, you can't start it and drive it for whatever reason, that vehicle is worth $500 or less. Now, if it looks like crap on top of that, that may be a deal breaker and I may just walk away from it. But if the car can be cleaned up to look decent and it's repairable, it may only have a bad fuel pump or something like that, yes, I'll buy that car, but it'll be for $500 or less. Kind of like my Silver Bullet. The guy said the car needed a fuel pump, then it wouldn't crank, so I knew we had a starting issue and a fuel pump issue. I bought that car for $450 delivered. So, if your car is not running and driving, $500 or less. Another example of that is my blue vehicle. The gentleman couldn't start it, my blue wagon. The gentleman couldn't start it, I couldn't drive it, 500 or less. In his mind, it had nothing wrong with it. In my mind, you can't start or drive it. It can't be worth much more than I would get if I took it to the salvage yard and junked it after parting a few things off of it. So, if the car won't start and run, I want to protect my investment and I don't want to lose my shirt on it. So, I'm going to try to buy a car that if I junked it or parted a few parts off of it, I get my money back. The next vehicle that I would consider is a vehicle that's running. If you could start and drive a car and it rolls okay and it may or may not pass inspection with minimum things needed, to me, any car that you can start and drive 50 miles is worth $1,000. So, if I'm looking at a car that can be started and driven somewhere, it may need some maintenance or something like that. To me, that car is probably worth $1,000. Now, if you're looking at a car that's been well serviced, well maintained, looks in decent shape, will pass a vehicle inspection by a state requirement, then more than likely that vehicle is probably worth $2,500 and maybe more. An example of that is I sold a 960 that was 14, 15 years old, very clean car, well serviced. I sold it for $4,500. When I'm looking at a Volvo that is repairable, meaning this car can be purchased, serviced, and put on the road, and in my opinion, mechanically restored, these cars can go, I would believe, 500,000 miles when maintained and serviced. So one that has been repaired, serviced, and mechanically sound could probably easily go 50,000 miles, maybe 100. I like to purchase these cars because I know that there's only 3 or 4 things that will bring them to their knees and cause them to go to their grave. And once I've put the money into them to protect them, this car will be as dependable and give you as much life as any car on the road that is one day out of its warranty. So, from my opinion, I could service or repair this vehicle, and this car will be as good as buy as any 5-year-old vehicle on the road, probably as comfortable and has the features and comforts that most of those cars have. Getting down to the nitty-gritty, don't ever let somebody's advertised or marketed price deter you from approaching a vehicle and considering purchasing it. Example, the car that I delivered to my mom, it was advertised at $2,700. My friend purchased it for $400. The car could not be started and driven anywhere because of the drivetrain that was messed up in it, and the person that had it knew they put a lot into it, but when it came down to the nitty-gritty, they knew how much a reputable service technician facility would charge to put that car back on the road, and they didn't want to pay it. Anytime I see an advertisement or hear of a vehicle that is disabled, I automatically know that I'm probably not going to pay more than $500 for that vehicle. So let's assume this was a vehicle that was advertised for sale that's disabled. This is what I look for. Now, this vehicle was marketed, my understanding, was $700 when my friend told me about it. So I want to make sure that I'm not going to spend too much on the vehicle. I come to the vehicle, I want to know if it cranks. It did not. So if the car doesn't crank, I'm already not going to pay $500 for it, but I want to make sure that the motor is not locked up. So I took my crank tool, my 36 millimeter ratchet and socket, I got on the ground, I got under the car, I pulled that splash panel back under the wheel, I turned the motor to make sure it rolled freely. It did. So I knew the motor was not locked. Of course, if the car cranked, I knew the motor was not locked as well. Number one, I want to make sure the motor is not locked up. Number two, I want to know what condition that motor's in. And basically, if you're dealing with the owner will talk and talk and talk, and go ahead and let them talk. If this car is experiencing misfires, I would assume that it has a bad head gasket or it has a burnt valve. So, if a car has a bad head gasket or burnt valve, I know I have to take the motor apart. I'm not willing to take the motor apart of a car that's not turbocharged. So, if it's an NA car, I'm not going to save that car. I'm a back away. I'm done. If it's a turbo car, those cars are so fun to drive. I'm willing to take the motor apart to redo the head or redo the valves on that vehicle to save it. So the second thing is I want the owner to tell me what they know is wrong with it, and I kind of lay low and let them know that I know something about the vehicles, especially since they see I pulled up with one. They think they're not going to fool me, so a lot of times they'll just lay their cards out. Number three, I want to know what major servicing has been done to the vehicle. In my opinion, there's 3 or 4 things that will bring one of these cars to its knees. Number one, a broken timing belt. So I'm going to find out, when was the timing belt last done? If it wasn't within 70,000 miles, it's past due. Number two, a blocked PVC can blow your rear main seal. That's an expensive repair. I want to know if this PVC is soft and serviceable and if it's been serviced lately. If I can't see written documentation telling me that this has been done, that's another service. Number three, I want to know if the vehicle is running around with a blown head gasket. If the vehicle runs and it's cold, I check the level in the bottle. I take the vehicle on a test drive, at least 15-20 minutes, and I go on the highway at least once, highway speeds. If I come back to this bottle and now the level is higher, I'm going to assume that this vehicle has a blown head gasket and the combustion pressures in the motor is forcing the coolant out through the bottle. Also, you can also see evidence of that with a lot of ash around the coolant bottle tank. Sometimes the tank is bloated. Sometimes there's coolant spray around this area. And if it's got a blown head gasket, of course, that will affect the price dramatically. Number four, how's the transmission acting? Has it been serviced lately? That kind of things. So, as the owner of the vehicle's talking, I'm tallying up cost. Okay, so just for grins, let's say the clean retail blue book value of this vehicle is $2,900. I believe that's what it is at this time. I'm going to communicate with that seller, backing off the cost of the service requirements if done by a dealer or reputable service technician center, and then I'm going to offer them the price that I believe the car is worth. So this is how it goes. Sad thing about it is the owner already knows this information. Generally what happens with these vehicles is something breaks that sends them to a repair shop. A reputable Volvo knowledge repair shop is going to look at that vehicle, estimate what it's going to cost to take care of that repair, and to protect themselves, they're going to give the current owner a laundry list of things that needs to be done to the vehicle. Now, most shops, they don't want to put a Band-Aid on something and let that vehicle leave there with a lot of other things needed, because that may put them at liability for that car running for the next month or two or something like that. And they don't want that stress and strain. So they're going to disclose to the owner what all needs to be done to put this vehicle in serviceable condition. Let's just use the Silver Bullet as an example. The Silver Bullet breaks down, will not start. The owner takes it to a garage. The garage says, hey, you have a bad fuel pump. Now they're going to price out getting that fuel pump. So the cost of replacing the fuel pump at a reputable shop in this vehicle is about $500. Now, they're going to say, to get that right, it's a $500 ticket. Now, the owner, within 6 months, just dropped $500 on something else, and in this case, it was a starter. So now that mechanic is going to look around the vehicle, look for future work for them, and look for things to protect themselves from this vehicle coming back on them with some kind of legal liability. So here it goes. Hey, Mr. Seller, we can put this car back on the road by replacing that fuel pump for the average fee of $625. That'll be a new fuel pump, the labor time involved in putting it in, and you and I know a fuel pump can be replaced in this car in an hour. So why they're charging the people 3 or 4 is beyond me. Well, heck, a fuel pump assembly can run anywhere from $250 to $425, so that's part of it. Anyway, so we can put the vehicle back on the road for $625. However, we need you to be aware of some other things that need to be completed on the vehicle. Number one, the timing belt appears to be way past its time interval. To do a timing belt job, Mr. Owner, that's going to be $850. If they were at a Volvo dealership, the Volvo dealership is going to recommend $900 to $1,200. So now, on top of that $625 fuel pump charge, he's looking at another $900, so he's up to $1,500. Then, if they know anything about Volvos, they're going to say something about this dirty engine and say there's an oil leak. So now they're going to say the PVC needs to be replaced and serviced. Well, again, a PCV job on this vehicle is anywhere from $600 to $850. Now they're going to look over here and see that motor mount blown out. Well, that motor mount needs to be replaced. That motor mount is going to cost you $200. Wait, there's another motor mount down on the front of the motor that's need to be done. That motor mount replacement down there is $275. Okay, and you have a bad shock in the back, and your radiator mount is broken, blah, blah this, blah, blah that. To get this car serviceable and safe for you to continue to drive, you really need to spend $2,500 on this car. And they may say anywhere from $2,500 to $4,500. The lady that purchased my yellow T5R sedan from me called me up one day, basically in tears, asking me to buy the car back from her because a shop had told her that the car needed somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,200 worth of work on it and offered her $500 to purchase the car. Well, I had a buddy buy the car because I wasn't in a position to buy it, but man, those people just scared that poor woman to death. So now I approach the vehicle. The owner already knows that he's been told he needs to put anywhere from $2,500 to $4,500 into the car to make it safe and reliable. I know it doesn't take that much if I could do the work myself. So I start poking around. I asked about the timing belt because he has no records proving that it's been done. I asked about the PCV system, and I throw a number out there between $600 and $800. Then I throw the cost of the timing belt job out there. Then I throw the price of a radiator out there. Just by looking at those few basic things, I've run the restoration ticket on this vehicle up to as much as he's been told it's going to cost to get fixed. Then, before he put it for sale, he's already checked the Blue Book value. Rough trade-in, average trade-in, clean trade-in, clean retail. So we both know, standing toe-to-toe, that there is more work needed to be done on this vehicle than this vehicle is worth. Again, from my perspective, there's only a few things that will bring this car to its knees. Number one, a catastrophic failure of the timing belt system. That'll crush the head, destroy the motor. Number two, a catastrophic failure in a coolant leak, i.e. a bad heater core, or some other coolant hose. That'll cause the motor to overheat, destroy the motor. Number 3, lack of servicing of the transmission, which will cause the transmission to fail. And number 4, a PCV service that will cause a massive oil leak somewhere, i.e. a rear main seal. So, short of one of those things happening, this vehicle will probably last a long time. So those are my main concerns. So once I see that those things have or have not been done, and I know if the vehicle starts and runs, I'm ready to make a decision. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, or you can use my videos to complete tasks, most of the things on this vehicle can be had and repaired for less than $100, and it'll be a rare occasion that everything will fail at once. Another thing that may cripple a car is a failure of a alternator, but that's normally not a catastrophic thing. That's something that happens over time. A fuel pump failure, fuel pump relay, those kind of things can be had very cheaply at a salvage yard, off of eBay, or something like that. So those things don't scare me, and they won't stop me from purchasing the vehicle. So back to my plan of action. If I'm going to buy a car to flip it, give it away, or whatever, I'm going to make sure that the motor's not locked up, the transmission works, and I'll know what kind of service I need to do. Then I'll make my offer. Regardless of the offer, I'm going to put myself in a position where I won't lose money. If it's a car I'm planning on keeping, I want to make sure that I'm not going to put more money into the car than I would spend buying something in better condition. An example of that is, I went to go see a 98 XC. The car needed a new radiator. The car needed all the timing belt stuff. The car had a blown motor. The car needed interior seats. The car needed this. The car needed that. Heck, by the time I backed everything off of the retail value of the car, the guy would have needed to give me about $1,200 to get that car back on the road. I just walked away. I told the guy, hey, I'll take it for $250, probably part it out and junk it, but it wasn't worth no more than that. It was simply in too bad a shape. So there is some cars that's in too bad a shape to deal with. Now, you want to take in consideration your skills, your ability, and your time when investing in one of these vehicles, because you don't want to put so much into them up front that you're stuck with them, or if you want to flip it, you can't flip it. The example of my maroon sedan, the one I call my deliverer, because it delivered me from that Saturn and got me home safely, I paid $1,000 for that vehicle. Well, the vehicle started and ran, and it would get me anywhere I needed to go. In my opinion, it's worth $1,000 to get away from Kentucky. And I can basically take maybe $600 to $800 and have that car restored to a very respectable vehicle that can give somebody 4 or 5 years of easy service out of it. If you're someone that can't turn your own wrenches, or you can't do things to fix cars yourself, you just want to stay away, because these vehicles can have a lot of little things wrong with them that will eat you alive if you have to pay a mechanic or some repair shop to do these things for you. On the other hand, if you're looking to buy a vehicle for a college kid or something like that you want to keep in the family or use for 4 or 5 years, look for one of these. Make sure the motor's in decent shape. Make sure things are manageable. Get the car, service it, keep it for 4 or 5 years easy. Now, just a quick overview. The motor's running or not. The timing belt's been serviced or it hasn't. The coolant system is in good shape or bad. Does the air conditioner work? Is the PVC plugged up? Are you going to have to spend $300 or $400 on tires immediately? Is the interior so destroyed that it won't look decent? Is the body banged up so bad that it'll just look like an ugly vehicle the whole time you have it? These are things that you want to consider. Now, I have no problem with putting $2,500 into a vehicle that I will keep and drive for a few years. That's a small price to pay. My opinion, if you pay $2,500 for a car and it lasts you for a year, you got a good deal, because that's less than $250 a month. That's about all I have for now. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them, and I hope that helped. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.